Hey, boys and girls, weather report for May 27th, 1935. Maybe. How's everybody?
Doing
wonderful,
excellent.
Wonderful.
Excellent for my car not start.
Yeah. I thought you were all doing okay. I just wanted to go over something I found on Praise's channel. We need a calendar, and when Smokey and Praise are getting along, we need to like strike red through it. And then when they're not getting along, we'll just leave it blank so that we can, because I'm pretty sure at some point it will start alternating day by day, like red and white stripe.
Yeah, I was gonna say all you'd have to do is just go every other one, and you'd probably hit it right on the nose, and you wouldn't even have to wait.
It's just fucking hilarious. I mean, trying to keep up with what happened just last week as to when they're on and off again is like it's like a soap opera. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing. But anyway, Will Kincaid was on here last night, and he was and he did a little bit of his backstory on the internet. I think I'd heard it before, but he said that he started out, trying to be serious, and do serious shit. Well, then he found out that the crazier he got, the more applause and views he got and whatever, and that created the current Will Kincaid. And he's I think the guy's funny, but lately he's done some pretty weird. I mean, it's obvious that he's really trying to push the bar on everything. But anyway, I just wanted to play what he said about me here. Hang on a second. I'm going to mute myself and just play it right.
To trigger speed again if he ever has a conversation with you. Just ask him how he feels about the Second Amendment. That'll fucking really
my! Yeah,
I like to
That was it. So Will Kincaid usually hits you, right where it hurts. But Will, I'm a gun fanatic. I'm sorry. The Second Amendment doesn't bother me. and no, that's not the way to trigger speed. Maybe if you went after, the idea that we shouldn't have laws about taking mentally ill people's weapons away, I might get a little triggered like I did with Maddox, but probably not. I'm probably, beyond triggering at this point. If you really want to trigger me, just say Jerry Fodor. But how did he miss the fucking point? I mean, what an idiot. I mean, he's not an idiot. He obviously hasn't done his homework.
I was just about to say he didn't really check into it. He just kind of, probably checked into the surface of it. Basically, somebody told him something that you got upset over that or whatever. Somebody told you, you got upset over guns, and that was it. And that's probably all he even.
Yeah, I hate to do this, Will, but just I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That reminds me, that video that they keep showing of that, I don't know who the hell he is, a senator or something. Him and his wife, there were protesters walking by for Black Lives Matter, and they had he had like some kind of assault rifle, and she had a pistol, right? And she was pointing it at the crowd. Did you see it? Do you know what I'm talking about? They keep showing it over and over on the news. He was either a governor, I don't know what he was, Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Is that old? Is that
I
an old
absolutely
one?
know
Is
what
that
you're
new?
talking about. The picture was kind of iconic all during the election. It was
Yeah.
some sort of Black Lives Matter or similar march,
Right.
and
Anyway,
they were-
you'll notice where my finger is, right? Okay, it's not on the trigger. Okay,
right.
that's how you hold it. That's how you hold a gun. She had her finger on the trigger. She obviously has never been to a gun training class. I just wanted to point that out. She had her finger on the trigger and she was pointing the gun at people. And it's like, you idiot. It's like, fucking Republicans, send your people to gun class. At least if they're going to be supporting the Second Amendment, at least give them a little bit of training. Like, it takes 90 minutes to watch the video. For Christ's sake. Anyway, that was it from that stream. Nobody else that was notable was on that stream other than Will. But
you don't go to the streams for notable.
No. Or natable.
Yeah.
Natable, notable, whatever. Anyway, so what else is going on? Oh God, there's a whole bunch of stuff last night. So BrainBug did a video, and I'm gonna have to put all this stuff in the description somehow, which means I'm gonna be busy, and you guys are gonna have to fill dead air. And AJ, I think, did a video, but we can't find it. AJ. And I haven't sent out any invites. Oh, I'm going to put the invite in the chat because Jason is here. And Jason, we would like you to stop in. Anybody else?
I didn't go look to see if that AJ's stream was up. It might. Like I said, he may not have put it up yet. You know what I mean? He had it last night, and it was a short thing. It wasn't a long stream.
Yep. So Creation Myths did a 1K party with Erica and Maddie from Science Side Up and Dakota from Deadly Dakota Raptor and Walker and Dapper Dino and David Neff. And I forget who else was on there. But that was kind of a neat stream. It was a fun stream. And BrainBug did a thing on dunking on Darwin, which is kind of cool. And it's 24 minutes long. And I will try to get these in the description. And it's Mom.
Mom!
Is your mic any better today, Mom? Your mic was
I don't know. Does it sound better?
A little better, I think.
Okay.
It's all subjective. We can barely keep up. Oh, and something that doesn't get a lot of attention is James Downard with his Replacing Darwin series that he's doing every Wednesday night from 9 to 10, or is it 9 to 10? I think it's 9 to 10.
Yeah, it's 9 to 10 Central.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to link that. He doesn't have the views that he deserves because he is very thorough.
He's very thorough, does a great job. He'll do like the first half of going. Lately, it's been for many weeks. It's been the Replacing Darwin book by Nathaniel Jeanson. Did you know he's from Harvard? And then the second half might be some handpicked topic or some topic that is fresh in people's minds or whatever. It's a good format. It's interesting if you listen to his comments about the different sources, and he's real good on presenting the history of the creationist movement in a relevant way. So it's great.
And the thing is, RJ takes people, he takes them down with such incredible detail and so many references that his book weighs about 15 pounds and it's about half references. So he is thorough as hell and he really knows what he's doing. So we should probably review some of those someday because there's some good stuff on there. And I'm trying to think of what else was going on last night. Not much else. Let's see anything else. Oh, the Jack Angstreich goes off on Otangelo. That was May 26th. That was yesterday. So,
Yep.
And
I mean, there's so much, there's so much good content out there, like, RJ stuff and, lots of other stuff out there. But it's like you don't have the time to watch it all. I'd love to support all the YouTube content creators, but it's just so much,
Yeah. I don't know. Should we check some of this out, or is it?
Yeah, I really kind of want to hear that. Are we queued up at the exact time, or?
No, there is no exact time.
Was it a long exchange, or was it pretty?
It's all him. It's all just Jack and Otangelo. How long is it? About a half? Is it a half an hour, or is it less than that?
16 minutes.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, and you can speed it up too, because Otangelo and Jack both kind of talk slow, so you.
All I know is the last time I heard Angstreich, he was really okay. I'd seen him, like a dog running after a bone with DD, but there was somebody else he was talking to, and it was just like, dude, okay, I'd seen him.
Oh, somebody's echoing really bad.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Huh?
So we're
hearing two of you, Mom.
Still?
Nope. Went away.
That's weird. I heard it too for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck it was. Not sure.
It may have been me. Sorry.
Oh, you suck.
Okay. Of course it was you, Jason. Damn. Anyway, I don't know. We could listen to a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Listen to a little bit, but play. You definitely, if you don't listen to the whole thing, you got to play the end of it where he really lays into him.
Let's start right here. 1346. You give us 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you happy with people like Jack in your?
One of the reasons why I thought it was important.
Because if it would be my stream, I would have kicked him out.
One of the reasons why I thought it was
I have some rules.
Is that me? We're still echoing.
They're over talking.
Oh,
yeah, I think they're over talking.
Yeah, two people are talking at the same time.
Each other,
okay.
And one of them,
Angelo gets muted. So go ahead. Yeah.
Can you mute him while I'm talking, please? One of the reasons why I thought it was important to stress this point about why he was asking for an argument from atheism, right, is that's just the Darth Dawkins shtick, right? He wants to give atheists, right, this massive burden that they need to prove that all gods cannot exist, right? When it would suffice to refute his view to just present an argument that Christianity is false, right? Otangelo doesn't want to acknowledge, right, that he's playing that dishonest game, right, which is why he wouldn't answer the question.
Jack, I am asking the question, how can we explain our existence without a creator much before I was interacting with Darth? And that is precisely an answer to the common shtick of atheists, which always ask for evidence of God's existence, but are always avoiding the burden of proof. That's why they move from strong atheists to weak atheists, where they don't have the burden of proof. So my point is that both sides have the burden of proof, and you have it as well. I mean, you defined your argument, which you think you are happy with, which I don't actually even understand, but anyway, and you think that justifies your worldview. Hey, go with it. If you're happy with it, and if you're happy with your worldview, go for it.
Do agnostics have a burden of proof, you piece of lying garbage?
Well, you said that you are a strong atheist. I asked you.
I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you that, you fucking piece of garbage. So I'm going to repeat the question, right? And I'm going to watch you not answer the question, right? Do agnostics have a burden of proof, you fucking piece of lying garbage?
Well, you said that you are a strong atheist.
I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you that.
So
right?
since you claim that you are
for a while I'm talking. Yeah. So Otangelo, I'm going to repeat the fucking question, right? Do agnostics have the burden of proof? Oh, he left. Okay.
Cool.
Oh, Lord.
Yep.
There you go.
I heard that in real time.
Did that take 16 minutes?
No, I just played 3 minutes at the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't have bookmarks for it.
I'm going to listen to it on my own, just to,
yeah,
because he is definitely trying to adopt the rhetoric of Darth Dawkins, without. Well, in this case, he might have gone pre-sup, but he's trying to stuff all his evidential crap into it at times too. So I think he's really wanting to, and this is hearsay plus faded memory. But somebody in our side chat mentioned one time that he was in a side chat conversation with Otangelo, and where Otangelo said that his goal was to humiliate atheists, and that might be what he's trying to do. Yeah. Is adopt Darth Dawkins' dumbassery in order to try to and what Darth does is with his precept is provide kind of a justification in that they presuppose that the atheists are lying, they're deluded, and they are not just on the face of it just are not honest interlocutors. So you can go ahead and humiliate them because that's just the way you do it,
Yeah, Otangelo ought to reach for lower hanging fruit than Jack Angstreich because he fell off the ladder.
Yeah. I thought Jack was really like over the top, though. I mean,
he was.
I mean, I commented on that stream, and Otangelo responded like, "Hey, we should talk about this," because my comment was like, I don't think Otangelo's position is valid, but Jack was over the top, calling him a lying piece of garbage and yelling at him. I mean, if Otangelo's position is so weak, then Jack should have no problem just letting the facts bear out that his position is weak. He doesn't need to stoop to that level.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I mean, actually, Otangelo earlier in that discussion was like he was trying to do the classic like atheists have the positive claim. That atheists, in saying, like Jack's taking a hard atheist position. He's taking a position that no gods exist. And so there, in that perspective, you could make an argument that both positions need to have justification. But if somebody comes into it and says, I don't think there's sufficient evidence to suggest that a God exists, therefore, given the lack of evidence, I don't really consider God being in existence, but it's personal. Like if evidence would come about that would show that God does exist, then I would believe that. That's the best position, because then that means that the God position, like God exists, is the positive claim. It's the positive claim. They have to provide evidence. I don't have to provide evidence that I don't think that such evidence exists, and therefore I don't accept that for now. Anyway, so I don't buy the whole let's reverse it on atheists and make them try to prove God does not exist, like proving a negative. I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah, God.
I mean, Jack presented him with an argument. Basically, Otangelo asked him for his argument. Jack presented it, and Otangelo just had no clue. Like he didn't understand it whatsoever. Jack tried to clarify, and then Jack asked Otangelo direct questions, and Otangelo didn't answer him. So that once that started happening, that's when Jack got pissed. Because he asked him direct questions, and Otangelo just starts to gish gallop like he does, and all of his crap, and then it just went real south from there. And it ended that way, the way you just saw it, him calling him a piece of shit and a liar. So.
Yeah, Jack had some position like about dispositive claims, and that as a result of that, I forget exactly how he phrased it, but that like an immaterial mind could not have dispositive comments, and therefore no God exists, which I don't necessarily think that position is that strong. I mean, if I was Jack, I wouldn't go with the hard atheist position, but that's, if that's what he wants to do, then that's fine. Because you can't prove that God doesn't exist, and you can't if you come in it and say God does not exist, Like I can provide contradictory evidence to suggest God does not exist. Absolutely. That's a very hard claim to support, and it's easily attacked. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops. We're bouncing Grace. Hey, Grace.
Howdy.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah, your mic is popping, Jason, when you're that close to it.
Oh,
Jason.
Okay.
Jason Voorhees, how you doing? Oh my God, how many soccer accounts is this?
I've blocked 25 so far. 25 out of 50.
Danny, you're a soldier.
So what is raw nakedness? Is that another one? Jesus Christ.
So can I chip in a little bit?
Who's that? Detzel?
Yep.
You want to chip in? Chip in.
Yeah, Jason, I think that we're going to have like a respectful disagreement on this one. There's a couple of things you said that I'm on the other side of the fence when it comes to it. The first, which I'm going to get to in a second, is that you can't prove God's non-existence, and the corresponding claim that you can't prove a negative. So I'll deal with that in a sec. But the first thing is that your comments about Jack's approach to Otangelo. And it's just like, how many times have we seen people have a conversation with someone like Otangelo or maybe Darth Dawkins or, any of these online creationists or believers, and the facts are provided to them by somebody who's capable of providing the right case. And it just goes in one ear and out the other. And the next time that they're on a public broadcast, they repeat all the same arguments over and over again. And eventually, I think that it gets to the point where you should be calling them out for their dishonesty when they engage in stuff like that. If I were to see somebody like Otangelo or similar people change or reform their arguments to try to respond to the criticisms that have been given to them, that would be one thing. That would show that they're actually interested in honest pursuit of what's true, but they don't do that. What they're actually after is a public relations campaign where they can convince as many people as they possibly can, irrespective of the quality of their arguments. And when you're doing stuff like that, I don't see the approach that you're supporting, where you just nicely tell them where you disagree with them. I don't see that really going anywhere. I think that it becomes important at that point, when you see that they're up to that, to call them out for it in exactly the manner in which they deserve. And I think that Jack did that this time, even though it is very harsh. Sometimes that harshness is required depending on what the other person's doing. So what do you think about that?
Okay. If my mic pops, let me know. I'll try to deal with it.
You better know.
Okay, great. Ultimately, I want an honest discussion with somebody that is respectful. And so I understand that the other side may not do that, that they may not be respectful, but I don't think it does any good for Jack to call him a lying piece of garbage. First of all, he doesn't know that he's lying. He's not inside of Otangelo's mind. To call him a liar is, I think, disingenuous. And to call him a lying piece of garbage, I don't know what the value of that is. If he wants to say, look, your position's incoherent, I can't understand what you're saying. You've said this over and over again on other streams, and when people confront you with those positions, you never are able to refute them. So I'm not going to have a discussion with you because you're constantly just reiterating the same thing over and over again, and you're not thinking about what I'm saying. That's different than saying, you're just a lying piece of garbage, shut this guy up, mute him. I don't know. I think it stoops to like Darth's level. That's what Darth does. He calls people liars and asks how old they are. I understand fighting fire with fire sometimes, but I don't know how.
Yeah, but that's not really what Darth is doing. He's fighting fire with, actually no, he is the fire. He's not fighting against it. He is the fire.
I'm saying, like, if in a conversation with Darth, if you were like, you're a liar, how old are you? You're acting like a child, I guess I can understand because he does that. But does Otangelo do that? Does Otangelo say, you're a liar, you're a piece of garbage. I mean, I don't think Otangelo has valid points, but I just thought Jack went overboard on it. So.
I can appreciate what you're saying there about pointing out that other people have pointed this out to you multiple times and you've never been able to respond to it. That's a good way of doing it too. I mean, I wouldn't fault a person for directly insulting another person if I myself feel that person indeed deserves that insult. And, when you say, for example, that nobody can get inside Angelo's head, that's true, but I don't think that you have to do that in order to see that a person's being dishonest. And not just dishonest toward other people, perhaps also being dishonest with themselves, letting certain emotions drive the case that they make for things. But I can understand what you're saying there. Usually, I very rarely insult people in dialogue. There was a brief conversation that I had when I think the Standing for Truth Brigade had a 3,000 subscriber party. And when I got on there, John Maddox started doing his usual thing. So I just threw it back in his face pretty hard. And I think that's the only time in which I really started to engage in that behavior. But to your other point,
No, go for it. Yeah.
Well, your other point was a lot more important about, whether or not strong atheism has a good case to be made for it and whether or not you can prove a negative. Yeah. So the first thing is, with the whole prove a negative thing, what exactly do you mean by that? Because I mean, I've heard that said before many times, where it's impossible to prove a negative, but there are actually many ways to prove a negative. Like if something's internally incoherent, that would be a way to disprove it, and that's proving a negative. Another way to prove a negative would be if your hypothesis demands that you see certain evidence, and then you look for that evidence and find out that it's not actually there, even though you would expect it to be there if your hypothesis was true. I think that that's evidence that would disconfirm your hypothesis, maybe not totally obliterate it, but at least provide some evidence for the negation and stuff like that. So is that what you're getting at when you say that, or do you mean something a little different?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are good points. And so I think it requires what is to prove something. Is proof mean 100% absolute? I'm absolutely 100% sure that no God exists. And what would be the mechanisms to do that? So I think you outlined a couple interesting points around contradictions. That if I can provide a contradiction which would exclude something, that you could say, I can prove that this is not the case given this contradictory statement. So I would agree with that. But typically, with the null hypothesis, we first of all, you can't prove the null hypothesis, to 100%. You can only know from a significant aspect. And in addition to that, typically you have a positive claim that you're attempting to reject or accept that hypothesis. And that to say, if we say, well, God, I'm using God as an example, we could use whatever, but to say that, God does not exist, that you could say that's a positive claim. That's a claim that provides evidence. But to say, I can prove that God does not exist, it just, I don't know if I'm doing a good job of articulating it, but it doesn't sit well with me on these negative components, of God's non-existence, that there is no God, prove that, as opposed to proving that something is occurring. I think that it's not an impossible claim for a negative in some respects to be shown to be, not true, that there's, or am I getting, that it's true that God does not exist. It's not. There are certain situations where it's not impossible, but I just think that it requires a lot more, as opposed to a positive claim, which can be proven in kind of a singular fashion. So. Okay. And I think those are all really good points. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I think that this is an interesting topic, particularly around this God discussion, because they're often, Otangelo in that discussion was you're claiming that God does not exist. And I always hear atheists make this statement, but they never can prove anything. I think that you have the burden of proof on that. It's an interesting discussion on that, on those topics, you know.
I definitely agree with what you were saying earlier about like the agnostic versus the atheist, and I think that the agnostic doesn't have a burden of proof, but the atheist, understanding that word as strong atheism, that person has a burden of proof. And since I'm a strong atheist, that means that I have a burden of proof. And so, I mean, like, to give you some examples of you know, reasons that I have for believing that positive claim that there's no such thing as a God, and to give you the context of what I mean by like proving that statement, I wouldn't mean it in the strict mathematical QED sense, but I would mean it at least as strong as, for example, in the court of law, we have that phrase to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is the kind of notion of proof that I would be using, that if, you know, insofar as my arguments would work, I would consider them to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that we would live in a naturalistic universe. And to give you some examples of what I'm talking about, so the first thing is that when you took, this would apply to like most gods with the exception of, for example, a deist god. A deist god is something that I would have to deal with in a separate argument. But for all those gods where they have a special relationship with mankind, like you see in the Abrahamic religions, where God puts man as like a special place in his created order. I don't know if you've heard of the philosopher Alvin Plantinga. He's a really famous, so like when Plantinga,
I say Plantinga, but I don't know if like I mispronounce it. So
heard, I've heard it pronounced both ways, and we both know who we're talking about, so it works for me. But in his book, Where the Conflict Really Lies, where he tries to basically say that it's naturalism that contradicts science and theism is in accord with science. And in that book, he talks about basically how the story between God and man is the greatest love story ever told. And, you know, and so there's this really, this real deep connection between man and God, and man's status is privileged in the cosmic order. And so, you know, and that's why you see a lot of the times, especially with amongst the young earthers and even the flat earthers, where you find arguments for things like a geocentric universe. That's very important to a lot of them, where the earth must be in the center of the entire universe now because man is privileged in the cosmic order. The universe must be young, because if it's not young, then why is it that man, that has such a central place in God's plan, appears so late in the cosmic history? And all of this gets to an argument that was formulated by Nicholas Everett in his book The Non-Existence of God, that he calls the argument from scale. And the idea being that the size and scale and age of the universe, our actual position in the cosmic order, reveals that we don't hold a privileged place in the universe. And because that's true, that is some evidence that speaks against the notion of there being a God who holds us to this privileged status. So that would be like one argument that would deal with all of the Abrahamic conceptions and many Eastern conceptions of God as well, where there is this privileged status that man has as a result of God's interest or love for man.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all good points. I tend to be more of a, I don't know if I would consider myself a physicalist or, but most of my disagreements with those who are young Earth, young Earth creationists, or even just regular theists, or in whatever capacity, is just a pure inability, just the aspects of supernatural and natural facets, and the fact that we've never we have no knowledge of supernatural components of omniscience, omnipotence. All these things just seem so antithetical to the world that we observe. And the thing you were mentioning about like the burden of proof piece, I tend to sway along kind of the, a level of significance of doing a significance test, and within a certain alpha value, what is the likelihood of God's existence? I think that it's just like, we're not even close to being able to effectively meet that so-called burden of proof, or to determine that the level of evaluation of that information. I just everything points against that. But again, it doesn't make it's impossible. But from a probabilistic perspective, it's just highly, 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 highly unlikely. So,
okay. So with that though, like, if this was a court of law, right, and the defense attorney, if the defense attorney got up and he was giving his closing statement, and his closing statement was the following: look, the prosecutor's case, it shows that the likelihood that my client committed the crime is like 99.99999%, but he hasn't proved that it's absolutely logically impossible, and because of that, you must acquit. Do you think that that's an appropriate response, or do you think that the jury should actually convict the defendant upon the basis that the prosecutor has proved that in terms of probability and in terms of how the court works, that the greatest likelihood, like beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt, as they say, it was in fact the defendant that committed the crime?
I mean, I don't know if I'm thinking about this correctly, but correct me if I'm wrong. But the defense, in order to prosecute somebody, and again, we're talking about a legal component as opposed to like a statistical model, et cetera, and those are different. But there is a kind of a general relationship with those. You don't need to have absolute proof. You just need to have within a reasonable doubt, which is like, yes. I think one analogy is like the plane tipping one way or the other, like if the preponderance of evidence suggests that guilty, even if there is other evidence that might indicate their non-guilt, then that is obviously has been shown to be enough to convict people, and I think that that's in our society. Now, again, we're talking about like guilty or not guilty. We're not talking about innocent. We're talking about whether they did it or whether they are shown to be guilty or whether we acknowledge that they are not guilty. That doesn't necessarily show that they are innocent, that they're 100% innocent. It's just that they were not able to prove beyond that level of doubt that they were guilty.
Yeah. The last one I have for you is basically, so people will talk about like the problem of evil and the problem of divine hiddenness as arguments and stuff like that. And there are a bunch of other arguments for strong atheism besides. But one of the ones that still convinces me has to do with the idea of divine creation. That you, and on most standard accounts, what you're dealing with, particularly like the most popular ones we have today, coming from people like Bill Craig, is this idea that, God exists at first in some kind of timeless state and then creates time. And I think that that's incoherent. Ultimately, I don't think that makes any sense. They try to say that it's simultaneous causation, that he created time at the same time that time comes into being and all this stuff. And I think that that's all just phooey. I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. But the idea there, though, that the notion of creating time, I think that that's ultimately incoherent. And if that's incoherent, that is also another argument that speaks to the incoherency of the idea of a creator. So that's like another point that I think is pertinent to the discussion. Yet another kind of nail in the coffin, so to speak, when it comes to theism. If this idea of creating time is ultimately incoherent, it casts doubt on the idea that there could be a creator of space-time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, I think these are all really good points. I think that one thing to consider is that folks like William Lane Craig are and even though I guess he has some cosmological astrophysics background in general, because, some of his work has been in kind of this aspect of like regressive infinities, that he's, his aspect of this modified Kalam cosmological argument, but that we apply the known perspectives of how we see the world to these aspects of like the beginning of the universe, before the universe, at time, or at a point in time or at a physical location, etc. That where we're not necessarily even sure that the physics of how things were operating and how space-time operated are actually reflected in what is now. Like we know for a fact that like it's not it's an inflation at that moment. Like what happened, before that? What was time at that moment? All those things are up in the air, and I think to use this cause and effect component of how we perceive the world to going back to prove a God, a designer that designed the world, or like a timeless being that created time at the same exact moment. I agree with you. I feel like it is incoherent, but I think it's incoherent because the people that are doing that have kind of a naive perspective of what the possibilities are given the physics of the situation.
We're all Danny soccer counts. By the way, Danny came in with the soccer count saying Drace was right. So you're a fan, apparently, Drace.
I'm not disagreeing with Drace. I think he's making some really good points.
Well, no, I'm sure it's a reference to something else. Maybe I don't know.
No, yeah.
I'm not sure. Whenever I come in here to the actual stream, I always leave the live chat behind, so I'm not in there right now, so I can't even tell what's going on. But I appreciate the conversation with Jason. I can appreciate where he's coming from, and I think his responses are decently put together, so they're well taken. Thank you.
So don't you think that there's a requirement that if somebody comes to you with a belief in God, that they specify the parameters of that belief or that God? Because you can't not believe in something that is just as vague as God, because there are some naturalists that consider the universe God. So, I mean, you have to nail it down a little bit, right?
Yeah, definitely to nail it down. That's why, every written debate that I ever participated in all the old, message board forums back in the day, always started out with a quick definition of what it is that we're talking about, so that way we're not talking past one another.
Yeah,
and
too bad people don't do that anymore.
Frequently, when Darth Dawkins starts talking, he will describe God, but he'll leave the mind part out, or the agency out, and then later on he slips it in after he starts talking to you.
One of the things that he says that I don't like very much is how he'll ask somebody who's essentially like, the way that I'm using terms here, I'm going to say agnostic and mean weak atheist.
Oh, isn't that cute? Sorry to interrupt you. Isn't that cute? He made an account of me. Hey, Tanya. Yep. That's adorable.
All right.
Sorry,
it's okay. I too want to congratulate Danny on his soldiering through and just on how many fronts he can attack Speed's live chat. But see, like one thing that he does that I don't like is, somebody who's essentially an agnostic, somebody who's a weak atheist. He'll try to make them take the either or position. He tries to get them to jump off the fence because he'll ask the question, do you think that that God is like the necessary foundation of all reality and stuff like that? And when they say no, he jumps on that as if what they've done there is to take a strong atheist position. But it could be the case, for example, that somebody believes that there is some kind of foundation to all of reality. It's just that they have no idea what that foundation is yet. And so it's possible that it could be a God, but they also don't have any positive belief that it is a God because they don't know what that foundation is. They trust that there is such a foundation, but they don't claim to know the nature of that foundation. And so I think that basically he just puts forward this false dichotomy and repeats it endlessly, throwing in a bunch of insults and stuff like that along the way. And that's basically his shtick. But I think it really is just a false dichotomy, because there is that third option of genuinely not knowing and being an agnostic. I don't think that there's any internal incoherency in that. So
he has changed his argument, though. He is not going with the knowing now. If you listen to his argument, he is now sticking with beliefs. What do you believe? You hear him specify that. He keeps, if you, I mean, I've watched him for a long time, and he's refined his argument over the years for, he's been doing that for a long time. And if you listen to his argument now, he specifies that a lot. What do you believe? Not what do you know?
Sure. And I mean, like, I just think that you could reply in the exact same way, like in the sense that, all right, do you believe that there is a foundation for all knowledge and all reality and all intelligible experience? And the person could say yes. And then he could say, do you think that that foundation is God? And the person can say no. And then he'll jump on that right away. But that person who says no, they could mean two different things. They could mean that they understand what that foundation is, and it isn't a God at all, and they reject the existence of a God, that gods do not exist. Or they could mean, yes, they do believe that there's a foundation to reality and an all intelligible experience, but they don't know its nature. They don't know what it is. And that's why they're an agnostic. And I think that that is a coherent position. Maybe in the future, they will come to discover the true nature of that foundation. Maybe they're a hard agnostic in the sense that they think that such an endeavor is impossible. But nevertheless, it is still coherent to suggest that, yes, I do think that there's probably a foundation to intelligible experience in all of reality. I just have no idea what that foundation actually is or looks like.
Yep. Yeah, I agree 100%. But he won't, he'll just browbeat you and say you can't.
Yeah.
You have to give a yes or no answer. It has to be, yeah.
The easiest answer to that is you don't need a foundation. Nobody does.
Right.
See,
Who the hell says
Nobody
you do?
actually
Right.
needs a foundation.
One of the things that Darth does is that he, like what Drace, what Drace was saying is valid, but Darth would say in the middle of it, he would say, "This is just atheist rhetoric. You're just pontificating. You're just, that rhetoric doesn't mean anything. That's you." When he can't understand something, I think he attempts to distract his interlocutor by making these comments that, like, it's gobbledygook. I don't know what you're saying. This is just the typical atheist rhetoric. It's a nuance. These are nuanced questions. So when he asks you something about, like, what is the necessary precondition for all intelligibility and facts, and you say, I'm not sure what that is, or if I say I'm not sure that God does exist, then he considers that incoherent, which it's not, but it's just his tactic. So
yeah, and I think it does come down to that as just tactics. And again, I mean, like, I do see a difference between us in the way that you describe Darth Dawkins, is that if it's a point that he doesn't understand, my suspicion is that he understands it perfectly well. It's just that he wants to keep up his tactic. So I think that you're a lot more charitable toward people like Darth and Otangelo and all these other. You want to still allow for the possibility that they're being honest about this. I don't think that they are, but that's just my personal suspicion.
Hey guys, something kind of funny. So I left one of Danny's accounts unblocked, right? And he just went on and he created another two of them, and I blocked them. And he makes two comments and then he creates another account. He just assumes I'm going to block him. So, like, he's making accounts, and he could have. What the fuck? I mean, he is so overzealous at making accounts that he's making them ahead of me. It's like, I can't believe it. Like, he came in here with like 3 accounts before I even blocked the first one, and I'm up to 32 right now. I think this is going to set a record. I'm kind of excited. Anyway, go ahead.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, Darth is. I mean, his whole big thing is that he switched the burden of proof, right? He browbeats you into saying, how did you come to the conclusion that God doesn't exist? And he wants you to defend that, like, prove that God does not exist. He just sticks to that, and that's it. That's the whole stick.
Yeah, and I do just want to say real quick that most atheists will disagree with me because most atheists are agnostic atheists. But, as somebody who is a strong atheist, when I refer to atheism, I usually mean that because that's what I am. And so insofar as we're talking about strong atheism, I would agree with Darth that such a person has a burden of proof. But I would disagree with Darth that the agnostic atheist has a burden of proof. I don't think that they do.
And this is why Darth has the argument in his script, which is indirectly denying the existence of God, or like being an agnostic is actually an atheist. He's got to get you to the point of saying you're an atheist.
That's a part of the refinement. That's a part of the refinement that he's just made recently. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's just that false dichotomy I was talking about.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, because again, remember, he's got to fall back on the Van Tillian. How do you know what you? How do you know? How are you certain about your reasoning? Like, where does reasoning come from? What he often says things like, what are the set? I forget how he puts it. Like, what are the set of particulars that explains like ultimate existence or something like that? Like, he's trying to get you to be like, is there a singular ultimate thing of which everything is derived from? But he can't get to that until he gets you to make your position that you do not acknowledge the existence of God. Because if you say, I don't know, and you're like, I'm not sure if God exists or not, he can't go to the next step of the script. So
yep.
Kind of an old
you have a listen to, I mean, if anybody ends up pinning him down to get him to defend Christianity is, and it's all the only defense and the only thing he goes to is, special revelation and natural revelation. And that's it. That's all he goes to. And
so I think Leo is kind of misunderstanding what agnostic is. Agnostic is basically that you don't have you don't have enough evidence either way, and you're on the fence, or you just don't really give a shit enough about the proposition to even think about it. So I don't think agnostics have a burden of justification. Do you? Why would an agnostic need a burden of justification? Like, I'm agnostic about the temperature outside right now because I haven't been there. Do I have to justify that?
Right. Well, no. I mean, if I can.
Now you're getting it. Go ahead.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say, if I can get in here, right? Personally, if somebody makes a God claim and and I said, well, I can't, like, you need to provide evidence for that, and then they say they burden shift. I'd be like, okay, well, I don't owe you. I don't owe you the burden of proof, but I owe you a justification as to why, as to why I don't personally believe. Now I could just say, well, I don't owe you anything. I don't have to tell you my justification for why I don't believe. You have to show me that I should believe.
So I agree with what Leo is saying. It's just that it's a different sense than what we were originally talking about.
Yeah, but that's kind of like he's talking about agnosticism as an action that an agnostic has to actively suspend his belief. You don't. Right. You can not know about something.
So, what I think Leo is talking about there, and I mean, like, I'll let him speak for himself, but like, say somebody comes up to you and they give you evidence for a proposition, right? But you choose to suspend your belief about their conclusion. There's a burden of justification that you have there in the sense that you need to explain why the evidence that they have given is insufficient now. In order for you to be justified in holding your fence-setting position, you would have to show that the evidence on either side is somehow faulty, which is, what Graham Oppie has been up to for the longest time. I mean, recently he started to get more into arguments for naturalism and stuff, but for a long time, his whole thing was to show that arguments on both sides of the fence weren't ultimately very persuasive. And that would be, I think that kind of tracks onto what Leo's talking about justifying your suspension of belief. If somebody offers you evidence for something and you want to suspend your belief about that something, the burden that you have is to show how their argument doesn't work.
A big part of this confusion gets into, and these arguments get all heated, is you got to determine the difference between belief and knowing, right? And that's where agnosticism gets, people have different ideas on it.
Right.
You're talking about two different things. You're talking, whether somebody believes something or whether you know something. And those are two different things.
Well, I take agnostic as meaning I don't know.
Right.
Or, and it has with it kind of a subclause that I don't care about this. I don't even want to think about it. So, I mean, there are a lot of things you don't have to think about. You've heard of them, but you just don't give a shit. Like, for instance, where the COVID-19 came from, I don't really give a shit.
Why?
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah, but why?
Why?
Yes.
Well, if it had a natural origin, then I care about that. But if it's some conspiracy about it being created, I don't give a shit about that. I just don't give a shit. I don't want to think about it. I'm agnostic. I don't care. It's here. We have a problem. We'll deal with it. It's like, I don't know. There's thing you have to understand about minds is that you don't have to necessarily think about anything in order to be a fully functioning human being.
Well, that's disturbing because I like thinking.
Well, it's fine. Think away. It's a good tool.
I don't think those words mean what you think they mean. I don't understand how you could be a fully functional human being and not think about anything. The best way that you could do that is by, like, all of your responsibilities you would shunt on to some other thinking person, but then you wouldn't be functioning at all. It would be the other person doing all the functioning for you.
Well, with the caveat that this would be a person that lives alone in the woods, right? They don't have to think about anything. They just copulate.
I mean, like that, for me, like just speaking personally, to me, the situation that you just described would demand that a person be thinking more than ever, because they have to think about how they're going to create shelter for themselves, how they're going to have a reliable source of water, how they're going to, withstand storms that come their way, how they're going to hunt prey and protect themselves from predators and all sorts of stuff. In that kind of archaic environment or primitive environment, you need to use your brain more than ever to make sure that you get from moment A to moment B.
Well, you use your brain, but you don't have to think propositionally or linguistically about anything. You have that. Maybe, okay, I should have qualified that. You don't have to think propositionally or linguistically, except in the case where propositions are purely
what the fuck is
sensory feeling propositions.
What the fuck is up with these fucking soccer accounts now? Speed is friend, not food.
I mean, he's going on and he's creating soccer accounts, and I haven't even banned him for a while. No, I mean, if I were to go back, it would take me a very long time to figure out which ones I should ban. But I do want to set a record. I'm up to 32.
Damn.
Speed's friend, not food. Speed is friend. I don't know. And who knows who the hell half these people are.
What's your record? What's the record you're trying to reach?
I'm kind of trying to reach 50 because he did say he had 50 soccer accounts. And if you got more than 50 accounts, you got to scroll down quite a ways on the list in order to select an account. I mean, it's got to get to be a burden for him eventually, right?
He has the burden. He has the burden
of scrolling.
Yeah.
Well, all right, gentlemen, I have to get to work shortly, so I'm going to jump back out. I'll jump in a little chat again for a few minutes, but then I got to head on out. So you guys enjoy your day.
All right, great. All right,
okay, try doing the next 5 minutes without thinking linguistically or propositionally, okay?
Nope.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Ciao, y'all.
Later.
Look who's here, Speed, buddy. Little
who's
pee-pee.
here?
Little pee-pee.
It's a little pee-pee.
Hey.
Oh, hey. Wait, no, hold on. Are we sure? Are we sure it's actually little PP and not Danny? Danny
It
suck.
could be Danny with John's thing.
Hey guys, I got it. I have a 1:00 meeting, so I got to go.
All right.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
yeah, nice chatting with everybody though.
All right.
Yeah.
See you,
See you,
Jason.
Jason.
See you later.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta go too. I gotta do the weather report.
Yeah, you never even did those, right? You had a whole thing all set up, right?
What's that?
Weren't you going to do something today that you didn't even tackle?
Oh yeah, I had. Well, I was gonna talk about natural selection a little bit, but
No.
Yeah.
I'm done with that topic. Holy shit.
no, we're not. No, we're not done. We really need to get into it because there's so much misunderstanding apparently, or
Right, but
nebulosity.
here's the thing. As long as you're talking to Danny, you will never, you will always have misunderstanding.
Well, that's not a problem for me because I'm not going to be talking to Danny. So.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So I didn't come in here to be a jerk. And I did answer the question, LPP.
Yeah, sorry, LPP. Apparently Danny has so many soccer accounts right now that is, he's putting Jill to shame.
32 I've banned so far, and he has another 5 that he's created. I don't know why he keeps coming in with different sock accounts. I haven't banned them for about 10 minutes. It's like, oh,
no,
my
secular pagan mom has been banning him.
I don't think you know how. Oh, actually, okay. I haven't kept track apparently. So it's kind of fun.
I can't.
Not for long.
Okay, so right now it's you, me, and Scott interested in that critical thinking textbook.
I'm gonna have to drag that out. God, when am I gonna get time? It is Thursday already. I can't believe it.
I mean, if your plate is that full, we can wait until July.
We talked about June, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So, how much work does it take to create a sock account? I mean, you got to fill out a form, or I don't know.
Don't you have to have a complete separate email to do that?
Apparently not.
Well, emails are easy to fool. If you just add what do? You add something after the email, and it goes ahead and gives you another account. I don't know. Yeah, I think you still have to set it up. I don't know.
They banned me because I insult people. Hey, LPP. Like, what the fuck? What, Danny?
Oh, my God. He's got another one. He created another one.
God damn, man.
I think I'm going to go back and ban a few of these. I got nothing else to do.
I
like
Nerdy
Rodent, and I like Hey Tanya. I hate to ban those. So I don't know.
It just shows your bias.
What'd you say, David?
Nothing. I thought Pagan Mom was doing it. I didn't even go back to look to see.
Yeah, no, Pagan Mom. Pagan. Sorry.
So
Pagan Mom.
Yeah. She's been. Yeah, I'm looking back on them now. That she's done some of them. Let me see. Look back. Yeah. Yeah. She's been doing them all.
Oh yeah, are you timing them out or are you blocking them? Can moderators block people, or is it just me?
They can do
Moderator
both,
can block people.
Yeah, monitor. Right.
You can put them in a timer, or you can block them. I think
you can. Yeah, you can do both. Yeah, and only the owner of the channel can unblock.
Okay,
right? That's how it works.
I should go count how many I got.
Yeah, well, she did a few, so you got to add those too, right?
God damn, I lost count now, Mom. You screwed me up. Let's see.
Yeah, she did a bunch.
And counting them is getting to be even like a chore for me. That's why I don't have any time to do content.
Get a spreadsheet. Use a spreadsheet function.
I'm going to have to write a program, keep track of Danny counts.
No, you just get a spreadsheet. Gooseberry,
pretty bad.
Do a macro. I mean,
I could.
just a quick function.
Yeah. I suppose.
I guess someone's saying mods can unblock too. I guess I didn't know that.
Really?
Maybe they can. I don't know. I've never done it, so I don't know.
That would be a problem for me.
I've never blocked anybody.
Well, if we got into a unblocking war, you know, that is an old problem. So, yeah, natural selection, I really think needs some thinking and some work because there's a lot to understand there. There's a lot of nuance to it. And
yeah.
I have been popping around Googling this and Googling that, and I have not seen a whole lot of talk about the theory of natural selection. I've seen a lot of talk about the mechanism of natural selection. But then when you think of it as a mechanism, it's a mechanism in a very broad sense, in that mechanisms are usually, like you lay out a very detailed plan about how something works, and that would be a mechanism, right?
Yeah.
And natural selection is a more general sort of, it's a mathematical population kind of thing. And I think what's left out is of course, Fodor started arguing against evolutionary psychology, is what he wanted to argue against. And he wanted to argue against the intentionality of it. And then he moved over to starting to argue about the intentionality of the way biologists talk about evolution and natural selection. So far, so good, because we shouldn't, we should try to, you've seen how much trouble we get into with calling things machines and calling cells machines and things like that, right? So, it's but we talk about that about so many things, even thunderstorms, we use intentional statements to talk about the weather sometimes. And so we do it a lot, but in biology, they probably shouldn't. So what Fodor came up with at first was all right, but then he seemed to go further, and he wanted to remove all of the talk about natural selection entirely, as near as I could tell. But I haven't got to the end of his paper yet. But it's pretty clear that he doesn't understand the science at all, which disturbs me. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole thing that you're saying is the theory of natural selection. That's probably comes up with lay people discussing the topic. It's not actually in the science or in papers or in textbooks or anything. Yeah, it's not. That's just because people get it confused. People don't, you know what I mean? Because you have the theory of evolution, and then they just mix the words up, and that's where it came from. It's basically maybe even a creationist thing. I don't, who knows where that actually came from.
People confuse a lot of things. You know what I mean? They
right.
A lot of things are used interchangeably, and it gets confusing. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's not necessarily, it's not used in the scientific community. Obviously, it's just, like you said, I think it's just came from lay people, just mixing the words up, and that's how it kind of.
Well, if you say the theory of evolution by natural selection, okay, you're talking about the core mechanism of evolution,
right,
as natural selection, okay? If you then ask natural selection to provide you with answers of things that the greater theory only provides, then you have created a straw man. You've taken the mechanism and tried to flip it around so it encompasses the whole, right? The whole of the theory.
Right.
And the theory of evolution is something that's, okay, so 4 accounts. Okay. So that means we're up to like 36. Anyway, the theory of evolution is constantly being added to and being extended and being understood in new ways. And there are a whole lot of things about selection that are really interesting. Now, the other thing, and Fodor could have just said this, he uses the idea of select for, and he he pushes back on that at first, and then he starts using it and expecting us to tell you what is selected for. Well, there is no select for, and he rightly points that out in the beginning of his paper. Okay, and I think his book too. He explains that there can't be no intentional selecting for. There is selecting against, and then there's one other thing that's really important, and that's just straight up neutral, basically things like genetic drift and just neutral genes or neutral traits. And those make a difference, or they don't make a difference until they do. Now, spandrels is what Gould came up with, and spandrels are basically these things that ride along with. It'd be all of the non-functional DNA, and it would be other things that basically even deleterious genes that happen to be linked to good beneficial genes, that create a beneficial phenotype. And those spandrels at some point, okay, if that species divides, if a river basically plows through two different species and separates them, and then that environment changes, so that spandrel now becomes something that is useful to the organism or helps it reproduce more, then it will drift off in that direction, and you'll have a speciation event. And the other thing, you have speciation events, and you also have extinction events, right, which are when nobody has a gene laying around that's going to solve this problem. Now we're fucked, that sort of thing. So that happens.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's worth a count to be banned.
Yeah.
This is kind of getting to be fun, actually, Danny. Thank you. But he ain't getting back in. Anyway, I think it's worth going through all those possibilities and thinking about, and then looking at the extended synthesis. Dennis Noble wrote a book which is pretty fucking brilliant, actually, that talks about a lot of these problems, and it might be worth going over some of that too. So,
yeah. What book? Speed. What book?
Be patient. Fucking midnight. Jesus Christ, dude. So fucking give me a chance. Dance to the Tune of Life.
Nice.
Yes. Hey, AJ. AJ just popped in. AJ, did you do a stream last night and it's not visible? If you have a link to it, I'd appreciate you putting it in chat.
Well,
he probably didn't even publish it because it was.
What? AJ doesn't have a wrench? AJ has no wrench.
Account to be banned. Like, what? Danny, why are you harassing Speed? Like, seriously, stop.
He's been pretty nice today, but we'll give him one. How did he put it with Atheist Junior? He said, yeah, you get points for that minus, and then he realized that he shouldn't finish that sentence, and then he kind of like rambled on to something else. But did you catch that? I mean, he was giving points to Atheist, to AJ.
Yeah. That,
and then he says
the argument.
Minus,
and the argument on his channel. Yeah.
Minus, and then he decided not to finish that sentence, and he tapered off because even he at that point was realizing what a dick he had become.
Yeah. Well, he's got to be charitable somewhere, and I think he was trying to be charitable there, I guess.
Only fools rush in.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm kind of a sicky soggy. Got a little happy.
The copy of that was Folder's argument, that the one with all the lines, the numbered lines to it, right? Where did that come from? Was that the one Danny gave?
No, that was the one that Danny's roommate apparently came up with. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that where? And Danny, did he give it to you, or give you a link, or send you an email or something?
No, I just have a copy of it. They put it in private chat, and I put it in text form, and then I have it here. you want to see it?
Can you send me a copy of that? Can you email me a copy or no?
I can email you a copy. I probably could. I don't know. Yeah, I can do that. So, shit, I should put folders. Well, I'm not going to do that. When we do natural selection, I've got a bunch of papers that I can link. And I'll put them in the description when we do that. But I think we're going to wait till like next week. What day is it? Is it Thursday?
Today's Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, we got one more weather report. So, anyway.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to go over that stuff. You know, whatever you want to go over.
Oh, one thing I think it's interesting, and I think it yields a lot of learning opportunities, basically for everybody, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
What about? I would think Andrew will probably want to jump on that.
Thank you, Sonny, AJ, my boy, my son, my grandson. Apparently I'm his grandpa. So it's interesting that Danny thinks that AJ is younger than Danny. Walker.
Walker.
How's it going, y'all?
You got a video coming out this week?
Not this week. I have a script that I'm hopefully going to finish this week.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought I'd just be very specific, so it would seem like I had psychic-like powers if just so happened you did.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully I can get more content out. I've been extremely busy these past 2 weeks, but hopefully I should get into a more regular schedule starting like next week or the week after.
So, what's your next video going to be on?
My next actual video will probably be on like cladistic taxonomy and morphological phylogeny, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So that'll be fun.
Oh, I always enjoy your videos.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I usually put a lot of time into those. Yeah, so what's going on here? I haven't actually been watching the stream. I just saw a StreamYard link and I clicked.
We were talking about
on the way to Walmart, a truck carrying socks blew up, and we have all these sock accounts now that.
Yep, sock account. Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to the first part of yesterday's stream, and I saw that y'all just kept blocking Danny's alt accounts and stuff.
Yeah, we banned 37 accounts so far of his.
37.
37. Yeah.
Man, why does he keep making? Why has he made that many?
I don't know. I think he said he had 50. You know, anybody that has 50 sock accounts, that's a good reason to ban them.
Well, that's a start for Otangelo as well. But
would that be like a minimum requirement where any citizen could have somebody else committed if they feel the need to have 50 sock accounts?
Yeah. I think that's probably cause right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. I got to switch back to me. Anyway, the conversation about natural selection and all the papers that I've been looking at, you know, the fights over various ways to present natural selection is kind of actually very interesting. So,
have you got the paper linked in the description?
No, I'm not going to do that until we actually do a big thing on that. Well, okay. the one by Fodor, if I can find the YouTube link to it. Hang on a second. Misguided attack on evolution on Fodor. Let's see, papers on. God, I don't know what I did. Oh, I know what I did with it. Hang on a second. Maybe I have
AJ is pretty irritated.
You know, I don't know if he has. It looks like a lot of these are probably new. Like Atheist Patreon members probably today. I saw. I'm not sure if it was yesterday's, but he had one that was like, "He who must not be banned" or something like that, which was really funny. I think that one should be unbanned. I think that one's a funny name. But
the funniest one that he just came up with was "soon to be banned." I think "soon to be banned" was a better one. No. If he comes up with one called "Natty Boy," I think we'll let that. I think we'll leave that one. We won't ban that one. Natty Boy, yeah.
Why that? Oh, like
Secular Pagan Bum came up with that yesterday. Call him, because if you sing the song Danny Boy with that Natty Boy, it really sounds great. It's quite works. I'm putting the paper by Fodor in the description of this video, just because we did talk about it. That would be fair, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, what's been the main topic for today, anyways?
We talked about atheism, agnosticism, and that sort of thing. And then there was a little bit where, what's the name? Will Kincaid's did this thing on triggering me by mentioning the Second Amendment. And I was trying to explain to Will Kincaid that doesn't trigger me exactly. So
I think we've talked about that before. You have guns and you do shoot and stuff.
I do.
We talked a lot about Das' argument, basically,
Yeah, that too. And yeah, we went over, there's a little video. Oh, I gotta link some videos. I'm just gonna link the videos because that'll be real fast. So let's see. We have Naked Science Was Darwin Wrong? That was from Top Dog. And I'll link that one on top. Let's see. So I'm gonna link a bunch of videos that we covered today. And I think we're about ready to shoot in the head. So what are you up to, Walker?
Well, I just finished research. Like, I met with my lab PI and we did like a little, conversation thing. I slept in very late today. Same thing. I'm working on the same project I was working on during the summer. He made Natty Boy.
Did he make Natty Boy? Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go. Yep.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Same topic. So
yeah, Mom, don't ban Natty Boy. I like that one. Oh, let's see. So Jack Angstreich goes off on Otangelo. There's a 16-minute thing. That's the last one linked. So in a second. What the hell?
Please, Canadian. What I was going to say was, right, if you think theism and
whoops, sorry. I played that. Okay, that's the last one. I don't have names on them, but there's 5 things everybody should check out, and they're just linked in the description that we talked about. Anyway, so we're going to do some stuff on natural selection next week. And a little bit on using Fodor's argument to guide some of the criticisms and some of the ridiculous criticisms of natural selection and evolution. But Walker, don't you think of it as the theory of evolution by natural selection rather than the theory of natural selection to explain evolution, right?
I think the theory of evolution by natural selection is just kind of wrong. Because, the theory of evolution by natural selection has been outdated since the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many other mechanisms. That's the whole Darwinism and neo-Darwinism versus the modern synthesis. That's whenever creationists argue against natural selection, that's always what they go to. But we've come a long way in the past 100 years.
Yeah, but natural selection is still kind of it's a core principle that things are going to be. It consists of, number one, you have to have variation within the species. And number two, there's variation going from one parent to another. So there's some mutational variation. And that's how the variation developed within the species. And then from there is, whatever the environment interacting with the organism and the organism interacting with the environment basically carves a path.
I think the whole idea of organisms interacting with the environment and the environment interacting with the organism, I've caught sound bites of this discussion for the past few weeks. I feel like that dichotomy is kind of just on its face wrong. I think the idea that organism in general,
it's got to be. It's definitely a two-way thing.
Well, yeah, but it's only two ways. How do you define organism? You know.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of a false dichotomy in my opinion. Like its premise is just wrong.
And it's very hard to define a species as but you can define populations if you pick an area. You know, if you draw a circle around an area, or if you happen to have an area like an island where there's a natural boundary, you could talk about a population within that. And within that population, you have variation along two dimensions. Number one, you have variation between extant individuals. And number two, you're going to have variation going forward and backwards, you know, through time, through generations. So you've got a two-dimensional variation going on. You find any problem with that?
No. I mean, it's definitely a dynamic system, right?
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, you know, how do you even define an organism? Obviously everyone thinks of the organism as like the macroscopic elements, but if you scraped off most of the cells that are in my body, they could live on their own. So does that mean the organism is the cellular level? What about, endosymbiotic events like mitochondria? What about the gut bacteria that we need to survive that we inherited from our parents? What if I built a house?
You just said it though. The difference between a colony of cells and a multicellular organism is that you can take off the cell and it can live on its own. Also, that you have cells that have specific functions instead of every single cell just doing the same thing.
Yeah, but if I scraped off like a skin cell and put it in a petri dish and it lived, right? Or like the HeLa cells, right? Are HeLa cells human, or are they their own organism?
Yeah. But you shed dead skin cells constantly, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say the skin cell can live on its own. I mean, maybe for a short time, but not indefinitely.
Yeah, well,
but if you're talking about like a multicellular algae that has cells that have specific functions, like an extracellular matrix, and then cells that have reproductive function, it's a multicellular organism and not a colony, because some of the cells can break off and start new organisms.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
I'm saying, like, I don't know. I think the idea of an organism is a very multi-layered concept. I couldn't live without the bacterial gut, like the bacterial colonies in my gut. Are they part of the organism of me, or no?
They're part of a symbiotic relationship with you as an organism.
But how do you differ between a symbiotic organism and a multicellular organism? The same genetic code? Because at that point, we're also getting into endosymbiotic events where, our mitochondria has a different genetic code than the rest of our nuclear DNA.
Well, when you die, those gut bacteria are going to continue to live, and they're going to start, chowing down on your corpse. So they're not exactly part of you as an organism, but they are part of you as a system, and they're basically living on their own. They're just sort of like tenants in the apartment of your body, but they're going to start eating you. Like, after you die, this guy had monitor lizards that bit him, and they have an anticoagulant in their saliva, and the guy died, and he had several monitor lizards, and they ate him. They ate his corpse, so it's kind of similar. But going back before you're talking about organisms, I just try to remember that the phenotype of an organism is plastic to the environment. So that's what's going to shape that, and that's just sort of another way of just describing natural selection.
That the organism is shaped by the environment?
But right. Walker, for every hierarchy, we necessarily have to pick out certain levels, right? And talk about those levels, at that level. So our language is like that. But I take your point that, as far as the like, if you walk out in the woods, there's an entire ecosystem, and you are now in it. You are now a part of it, right? So you're a piece of it. So you take that whole swirl, and that is a dynamical system going forward. And life very much carves the earth, and changes it.
Oh, for sure.
But,
I mean, most of the surface processes we have today wouldn't, exist without life. Life is essentially what controls atmospheric composition in a lot of ways. You know, life is what in a lot of ways controls erosional processes and stuff like that. And like the hydrologic cycle, it's greatly affected by life. You know,
Yep.
The Earth wouldn't look even remotely similar if life didn't exist.
Yeah. There's that book that Nestle recommended to me, Smith and Morowitz, where they talk about the I don't know, there's 4 or 5 epochs coming from the geosystem, the geological base, and moving forward into life, and he sees them as one continuum, basically, which Demeter doesn't like, because he likes to talk about that moment of Darwinian selection. But
I'm very sympathetic to, I don't know, the gradient of life between non-life and life, and the gradient between. Yeah, I think a lot of these terms are extremely nebulous, and it's, we put them into these human-defined categories that are definite. They're obviously constructs, but they're useful constructs when we're talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think if you want to define, like, how do you define an organism? You could just basically look at it as you have an example and you want to know, is this thing a living organism? You could have a checklist where you just ask, is it an organized structure? Can it react to stimuli? Can it reproduce? Can it grow? Can it adapt? And when you start talking about like viruses and stuff, it starts to become a little bit fuzzy of whether or not they're alive or not. And when you're examining biology in the living world, like, of course, we really can't make arbitrary distinctions about things. All we can really do is, we're forced to do arbitrary lines and make species concepts and stuff like that because it's useful. But really, we're just doing that. We're describing a system that's chaotic and natural, and really it doesn't care if it fits our human definitions, but it's useful to sort of describe it in that way. But
yeah, exactly.
It's limited.
If you have a checklist of, like, let's just say 7 items for what defines life, right? You're going to have some things that meet all 7 definitions. You're going to have some things that meet no definitions, but you're also going to have things that meet everything in between. Some things might be 6 checks, and some might be only 1 check, and some might be 6 checks with the 7th check being a maybe. There's going to be every possible step between 0 and 7.
By the way, boys and girls, Erica is having a stream, Gutsick Gibbon, investigating philosophy of biology, and she's going to have a guest. I don't know who it is. Somebody stumbled in off the street. So anyway.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to be talking about. I don't know if they're going to be talking about the whole Fodor thing.
Oh, I'm pretty fucking sure.
I guess now would be a good time to announce that on Saturday, 5 p.m. Central, Erica is going to be on my channel, and I'm going to be interrogating her like I did Aaron Ra. And interviewing. Sorry.
We'll put her on the rack. Waterboarder?
Probably it's going to be like a Salem witch trial situation. Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. You know what I mean? There's going to be questions. There's going to be silly memes. I'm going to be saying the word Gibbo a lot.
Okay.
We just make sure she answers the question. What is your foundation for everything logical?
How does she grasp the instantiation of the source of all ultimate particulars?
Yep.
And possibilities if it's not God.
Yeah.
Okay. But the real important question I'm going to ask is, Erica, are you a geneticist? That's going to be my first gotcha question. I may ask it multiple times.
Those damn geneticists. They're out to destroy God.
She needs to be held to task for this question. She's not answered it. It's at this point it's starting to become just embarrassing, frankly. So look out for that interview. It's gonna be really, really mediocre.
Like I really
No,
don't
it's
see...
gonna be really fun. Like seriously, though,
yeah.
it's gonna. I'm really looking forward to it.
I've never understood why the brain trust sees that as a gotcha.
What is a brain trust? Can somebody tell me this? Like,
The brain trust is like, I don't know, the people who put all 3 of their neurons together in a pot to come up with some creationist content.
Well, I think they see it as kind of a turning the tables on us, because very often we will say that so and so isn't PhD in their field. They're not an expert. They don't do research. Blah blah blah, and it just maybe delights them to turn it around and say so and so is not a geneticist or so and so is not a geologist. That would be
because I feel like they use it in the same way that I feel like they use it to almost discredit, like what Erica says.
Yeah, they do, but it's like how they talk about science and they say, look at this. These people, these liars, used to say that the universe was like 10 billion years old, and now they say it's 14 billion years old. I mean, they can't make up their mind. It's like, no, they're zeroing in on a more and more accurate answer. It's a good thing that the answers change to become more accurate based on better and more precise tools, instruments, and data and predictions that are shown to be true, like the prediction of the temperature of the cosmic microwave background radiation and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have the Bible, who you have the estimate of 6,000 years, which has not changed since Archbishop Usher made it in, like, I don't know, the 1600s. So they're describing the fact that science changes as a bad thing, and then they're describing the fact that somebody like Erica, who's I don't know if she's an expert in paleoanthropology, but she pretty much comes off as one. But if she's not a geneticist, then it's okay for her to say that I'm not. This isn't the field that I study, because there's only 24 hours in a day, and people can't be an expert in every field. And I would rather somebody admits that this isn't something where I'm knowledgeable, rather than Ken Hovind, who's like, well, I taught 17 different subjects, and I'm like literally the smartest person on the planet.
Correction. The professor on Gilligan's Island was an expert in every field.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
He's the only one with the right to talk about anything.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of like, I didn't read all of my books. I got 2,700 goddamn books, and most of them are textbooks. Like, who the hell's read all their books? If you read all your books, your life is over, right?
I've read all of my books, but I buy a book and then I read it and then I buy the next one. I don't buy 50 books and then read one.
What's wrong with
only
you?
Absorb like what?
I don't have that much money, dude. Anyway. I'm broke.
Well, you could just, the thing is, you can go to a library and you could get a membership there for free, and then you could just steal the books.
Yeah. I go to whenever like it's open, I read a lot of stuff from
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Please support your local library.
Actually, I'm wanted at our local library here in Minneapolis. So they have wanted posters for me because I would get so attached to my books. Like when I checked them out, I couldn't bring them back. It was like, it would be like if you had a baby and you brought it back to the hospital.
I think it has more to do with the things that you did in their internet computer rooms speed. Maybe. That's why you're not welcome back.
Oh.
Probably so.
No, actually, this preceded the internet. I was banned about 25, 30 years ago, something like that.
They knew. They preemptively knew.
Yeah, preemptively.
Your perversion.
Yeah, they just looked at me.
They profiled you, but it was a good thing because
at that time I was balding with shoulder length hair. I was bald with shoulder length hair.
Well, I mean, it's just obvious you're not trustworthy based on your appearance.
Not trustworthy. Nope. So Erica's going to start in 20 minutes. I think we should shoot it in the head, guys. Should we shoot it in the head?
So, AJ, before we go, you have a fan. P. Mars is your fan. He was using your avatar on a stream. He actually used your avatar to get into a stream that he was not welcome in or something.
That avatar is my copyright, sir, and I will be contacting
the guy.
I will be contacting my dad, whose name is Oz. So you need to watch out because he works at Nintendo.
Dr. Oz?
Yeah. Yep.
No, Oz, Ozzy Kamikaze from TART, the Atheist Roundtable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's my dad.
Biologically, yeah.
Metaphorical.
Really? Oh, metaphorical. Not metaphorical?
I'm honored. I'm honored that my channel is growing, that I'm attracting the trolls. I take it as a sign of great strength. My haters are my motivators, and I'm touched. Honestly, I'm touched in all the inappropriate areas of my swimsuit zone by this person.
I guess I just don't do enough shit posting because I don't have like any trolls.
I mean, you don't release a video very often, Mr. Walker, which surprises me that your channel has grown, has a number of subs it has when you have 2 videos. But I guess it's better to release really good videos every 6 months than putting out memes and shit posts like I do.
How many views did you have on your highest video, Walker? Didn't you have a video that got lots of views? You do, but you're muted. You're muted. Muted.
Well,
anyway,
he doesn't have any fingers, so.
Okay. Yeah, he's just a fish. I'm gonna end this, guys. So
wait a minute. Let's hold on. Don't end it yet.
Why?
Stephanie just said link, please.
What?
Yeah. Maybe there's some other kind of link she's talking about, but she said
a link to the past.
Maybe or missing link. I don't know. There used to be a kids show with live chimpanzees in it called Lancelot Link Secret Chimp. Maybe she means something like that.
Maybe.
I will say that one of my beautiful and sexy patrons made a donation to the channel yesterday, and so I now have an upgraded StreamYard account where I can have 10 people on the channel. Yes.
Oh. Good. She wanted the link to Erica's thing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
The link, Stephanie, the link is in the description, and I've named them all now. So while you guys were talking, I named all the links.
Just search her channel name, but
yep. So anyway, so now I'm going to kill this thing. We're leaving. We're leaving. Anybody have any last words?
I would like to respond to Ox's. He said you should let Danny in and then shut the panel down.
There you go.
We've done that before, just unintentionally with other people. They
right, I
let
know.
them in and then, let's shoot this thing in the head.
Yeah,
that's happened. Yeah,
shooting in the head now, guys. So
all right,
let me see if I can shoot it in the head at the right time this time. Let me see.